Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by CrowCast. Very warm welcome to everyone joining us on the chat this evening, and also a warm welcome to my co-panellists tonight. We have Peter J. How you going, Pete?
Good, mate. How you going?
Very, very good. Nikki, you got your voice back, which everyone's very happy about, obviously.
Except for Macca.
Well, yeah, he's probably no orphan. And speaking of Macca, how you going, mate?
No, I'm good, thanks, but Nicky's right.
Yeah, well, lots to talk about, I guess. It's not a very good week from the Crows' perspective, but let's get right into it with some news, shall we?
Yes.
Did I hear a donkey?
I was about to say, was that the donkey voice I heard?
That was a donkey.
What
That was a donkey awaking from
What was that
jet-lag
stupid
slumber.
What was that stupid sound effect?
That was not me.
I have no idea what that was.
That sounded like somebody's phone from 2003.
I know, that was really weird. Whose was
Very
it?
weird.
Come on. Own up.
No,
Whose
no,
was
not
it?
mine.
Nikki.
Not me.
I'm betting Macca.
Bloody Macca, he's gone quiet.
My phone's off.
Whatever. Anyway, Pete, let's hook into some news, shall we?
Yeah, look, probably the biggest news around the place at the moment, of course, was Dusty Martin's successful appeal at the tribunal, had his elbowing charge downgraded and to medium impact, and so it's now just one match suspension. So he gets one match shaved off of that. So he'll miss the Port Adelaide game along with Rance Rewalt and Trent Cotchin all out of that game as well. So that's going to be really interesting to see how the Tigers respond without those four superstars in their side. Other news today, Connor Rosie, unsurprisingly, was given the Rising Star nod with his pretty impressive 5-goal, 19 possession, 13 scoring involvements game on Saturday night. Pretty amazing. So well done to Connor. Very, very good game. So that was some interesting news tonight. Also, I did get a bit of a whiff of news. I think it was late this afternoon or early evening that the Crows have already discounted recalling Hugh Greenwood this week. Apparently he needs another week in the sandful. Not quite there yet. So I'm sure that'll please a lot of people. So that was from Mick Godden. So yeah, interesting.
He didn't do enough,
take.
Pete. Watching, being at the game on Friday, he really didn't do enough.
Well, I watched the game as well. I watched the game as well, and don't even get me started because you've got people running around in the ones getting 12 possessions, and so we and those guys we can bring back off of no preseason at all, and with barely any kind of trial match, but that's okay. We can have them back. And they get 12 possessions, and we can play them. But anybody else, you need 6 months in the twos.
Ellis Yeoman and Paholke deserve a call up before Greenwood at the moment, though, from the twos. So those two actually play quite well.
I don't care who it is, but anyway, I'm really, really grumpy. So I'm very, very grumpy about football at the moment. So I'll just I'll choose happy. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to choose happy.
Well, just a question: who comes out for Greenwood?
Right, anyone?
No, well, it can't be anyone. We're already slow as bloody mud.
Well, whoever it happens to, whatever changes they make. I mean, the reality is, and look, I'm sure that we should be onto this later in the show, but you and I, we both know that there'll be minimal changes, and the seedsman will be out. It will be one forced change. And then it'll be, or I think they're going to test Source tomorrow as well. So there may well be two, but I would tip just one.
Whose bloody phone is that?
Oh, it's bloody Mrs. Macca. Just take it out the room.
And he denied it, but it's obviously in the room with him, and he didn't hear it.
No, he didn't actually deny it. He said his phone was off, trying to protect the missus. And Mrs. Macca will do her own sound effects. Thanks very much. Bloody hell.
Anybody else want to jump in there? And
the Dusty one I found kind of interesting, the whinge they had afterwards that about they need to have a chat to the umpires. They need to look after Dusty a bit more. He needs a few more frees. I'm sorry. No, he doesn't. Everybody's figured him out and he's slowed up. And actually, Richmond might perform better without him. No.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't think they perform better without him, but they just don't. He's just he's a protected species. He's been palming people in the face for years, and he doesn't like it when he gets a bit of attention back and acts like a sook. And he should have actually got rubbed out, I reckon, about in 2017. He played a game on the G against Brisbane, and the tagger who niggled him, I think, got a week, and he probably should have got one back, but he was Dusty, and that doesn't happen to Dusty, and he's finally got a bit of comeuppance, so good on him.
Yeah, the Donkey, I 100% agree with you. I think that he acted like a sook. I mean, he's barely had a touch all bloody year, and he hadn't laid a tackle before this game, and look, it's his problem. He hasn't done enough work or whatever. He hasn't done. He's not putting in enough effort. He's been hanging out waiting to receive the ball. He's got frustrated because he's got a guy tagging the living daylights out of him, and that happens to all the good players. And I would have given him another one for appealing.
Oh, dear. Interesting one for mine is what Fremantle are going to do with Nat Fyfe, because anyone who saw that head clash and the aftermath would suggest quite strongly that he will miss at least a week. But he's listed as a test on the Fremantle injury list. And it's... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, they do have to test him. They've got to test him during the week. So they're right in that respect that that's what he's listed as. But I agree with you, Fane, the way the eyes roll back in the head, and you had that stiff arm action happening. It's just straight away it was like, yep, that's an automatic at least a week rest for him.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm with you, Nicky, because that's one of the most sickening front-on head blows I've seen, because they actually... the other guy must have a head made of rock, because their heads just went bash and at full tilt going for the ball, both going for the ball, and not seeing a damn thing but the ball, giving it 100%. But one must have either he was lucky where it hit on the head or a head made of rock, and poor old Fyfe, he went down like a sack of spuds, and as you said, Nicky, he went through all the spasm of concussion with the stiff arms and all the rest of it, and sensibly in the day and in the environment we're in here now, and in these days a little bit more learned about concussion, or they're not fully learned. Really, I think he really should miss the game. And I even thought the same about Rockcliffe, because I mean he went through a very nasty concussion as well, I thought.
Right, Macca, you're sin binned, mate. Sorry.
What's that for?
So much noise going on in the background there, we can't even hear ourselves speak. So you'll sin bin for a little while until Mrs. Macca finishes the dishes. What other news have we got?
Did you talk about Sunday night the whole Dean Bailey Melbourne tanking stuff that broke through the week?
No, we don't talk about news on Sunday night.
Well, that was just an astonishing development, I thought, and I thought Caroline Wilson summed it up pretty well last night on Footy Classified, actually, and just an appalling set of circumstances, whereby clearly, it's emerged that the whole the tanking thing, it certainly did exist. It was at board level, and no doubt, as we all suspected, that Dean Bailey was nothing but a scapegoat, and Chris Connolly nothing but scapegoats, just a. We get up here and we bag the AFL on a week-to-week basis, but, gee, they make it easy, don't they?
Well, I mean, what recourse do you reckon the Bailey family have against Melbourne and the AFL? The Adelaide Football Club, what recourse do you reckon we have against the AFL? There's some fairly serious ramifications to that, because that's essentially a cover-up that resulted in sanctions to Dean that had a direct impact on the Crows, and sanctions to Dean himself in terms of his own mental health and well-being. Donkey, you're going to get binned in a minute. This isn't something that can just be swept under the carpet. That's a major cover-up.
Well, it was an incredible cover up. I mean, it's, as I said before, it's an astonishing story because, the AFL. I read an article through the week about the reasoning, the likely reasoning behind it, and that is basically that the potential. The fact that Melbourne were pretty heavily lawyered up, and the money that it was going to cost, and the problems that they had, and all these kind of sort of extraneous excuses around it, why the AFL sort of tried to massage the whole issue. But all it's done is expose them to it's just terrible. They just
amateur.
They've just got no whatsoever.
Well, it's also very arrogant, Pete, I reckon, that they just feel like, give it enough time and then we can come out with a bit and, people will just shake their fingers at us and life will go on. It's extremely arrogant. And the competition is so manipulated and so controlled by head office. It will. The problem is it will just get swept under the carpet. There'll be a little bit of media for a while, and then it'll go away. And meanwhile, as I mentioned, and as you said, there's people and clubs and teams that were directly impacted. The loss of Bailey for that period of time was a massive loss for the Adelaide Crows.
Huge.
Mm.
And the thing for me about this is it was kind of known at the time. Everybody talked about it, but there was no proof. But we all kind of knew that it came from the top, and it had to have come from the top, that direction, and that's where the club wanted to go. And what this raises for me is what does the AFL have around Essendon that they really don't want to get out?
Oh, look, it's undoubtedly a whole dossier of communication and cover-ups and all the rest. I mean, let's not forget that Demetrio was in charge back then. He was the master manipulator. He makes Gillon McLachlan look like a bloody infant in terms of his ability to manipulate the competition and manipulate the way he wants things done. And, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if there's a massive file deep down in the archives of someone's basement that'll see the light of day in about 15, 20 years that will show that the AFL
There's a reason Adrian Anderson ran away very fast.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Anyway, what else we got, Pete?
Oh, I thought that was a pretty good one. There was just going back to the tribunal, because that's always such a good source of fun for us. The Jesse Hogan fine. I mean, that was just crazy stuff. I mean, what's going on there, really? Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it, Pete.
No, I haven't seen that one, Pete.
Oh, jeez.
So
just two guys going for the ball, and it just they kind of just bumped into each other, and it was, on the wing, and it was just nothing, and because Hogan was first there at the ball, he's got done for, rough conduct, $2,000 to a $3,000 fine or something, like nothing. I mean, it wasn't like the other guy was even remotely hurt. He just kept playing the ball.
Yeah,
two guys going for the ball.
Not unlike the one last week. Who was that? Was it Sicily? Last week?
Oh, my God. I don't know what's going on with this game. I really don't.
Well, it's just so inconsistent.
Also, I think it raises a bit of a problem with all these sliding in rules and the head first contact. You're not, a golden rule of footy you're taught from, under eights and above, is that you go in hard and you go in head first, and not just head first, but you go in hard and you go in early for the ball, and you get protected if that happens. Whereas now, if you're first to the ball, you're almost penalised, because if you're first, you hit legs or hit all some of those other things, you're not seen as having a correct duty of care. I think they need to work on how they write those rules and interpret them, because there's no incentive to play the game the right way anymore. Well,
the thing is that the rule was subtly changed, because when it was first brought in for Gary Rowan, after the Gary Rowan thing, it was a slide-in rule. You couldn't slide in. And then it changed to contact below the knees. And that's where the whole thing changed, Donkey, as you rightly mentioned. actively stops blokes from going. We highlighted one a couple of weeks ago where Chase Jones got a free kick paid against him. The guy didn't even bloody touch him.
The Chase Jones one was amazing. Like, he's reached out on his hands and knees, grabbed the football, someone's come through to kick it, and he's got a free kick against him. I mean, that's ridiculous.
The Hawthorn guy actually didn't make Chase didn't actually make contact with the Hawthorn guy. The Hawthorn guy let his foot slide into Chase and fell forward, but Chase at no stage actually made contact with him. He had two hands on the ball. I mean, it's just an absolutely ridiculous rule. And again, it's another example, as you rightly say, Donk, where the AFL are changing the fabric of the game.
I'm just looking at...
for me, just quickly on this, Pete, they've, as you were talking about the head-on contact, now we actually have a rule that says that players who try to instigate contact, so if they've got their head over the ball, if they're the ones who then drive the head forward, they get a free paid against them because they're actually instigating that contact. They're creating the dangerous situation.
That's right.
So the AFL can do that. So we now have players, and there was like in I'm pretty sure it was in the West Coast Collingwood game, which was a great game, that one of the Collingwood player who went for the ball, the West Coast player just kind of came in with his legs and dove over the top so he could get the free. Now, that player has put himself in a position of injury. Same as with the driving the head forward. I think they actually need to fix their freaking bloody rules and interpretation and actually say, if you come in as a player with no intention of getting that ball, that you're just going to, because if it's just your legs are going over the top, you're not going to try and get the ball. Your hands are not down at all. You've caused that particular contact to happen. Therefore, the free should be against you. They've got a rule that will penalise players for trying to cause an injury to themselves, and they've got a rule that's actually encouraging players to try and get an injury for themselves because they get a free kick out of it.
Yep.
I'm just looking at the video footage of this one for Jesse Hogan. So it's a loose ball. Now, Hogan and the St Kilda player, they're running towards the ball. They're not crouched down or anything. They're just sort of running in stride. They see each other and they brace for each other's contact. There's some sort of slight sort of contact-ish. Hogan, as a result of the contact, Hogan actually runs over the ball. The St Kilda player kind of gives him a bit of a shove, so he is well and truly out of the picture. St Kilda player picks up the ball, handballs, and the player goes back on to St Kilda's favour. Somehow, out of that, Hogan has a $3,000 fine, down to $2,000 with an early plea for rough conduct. I mean, it is astonishing.
Yeah.
Just the most ridiculous decision I've ever seen.
Was there an explanation from the MRP?
Not that I've read, Fiend, not that I've read.
Just rough conduct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last I looked, we were playing a contact sport, weren't we?
Yeah.
This is terrible.
I mean, how can you not have rough contact? Rough conduct in a contact sport is kind of part of the game, isn't it? It's supposed to be rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what we're really seeing is a policy reaction to the problem of concussions and the things that are going on. And so what we're seeing is an overzealous and inappropriate response to those problems that are actually occurring. And the overcorrections are probably making more problems within the game than they intended because they haven't been thought through. If you don't think through the solution, you get a worse outcome from your policy response.
And we were talking about this last week, and the problem with that is that it's inconsistent.
Well, yeah, because it's inconsistent because there's no value behind it. What's the thing they're trying to make better by doing? And the thing they're trying to make better is to when they're in court to talk about concussion in 6 months' time, they want to be able to say these are all the changes they've made to make the competition better, rather than actually look at what's going to reduce the impact and what's needed to be done. It's the AFL wanting to be seen to be doing things rather than doing the right things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, Mackie, you're back in, mate. So feel free to speak, and if it happens again, you're out. You're in the sin bin. He's gone.
Just a little snippet for the tipsters out there. That just a little bit of an odd statistic that in 15 matches that Buddy Franklin for Hawthorn of Sydney has played against the Ds, Buddy Franklin is currently 15 zip on the Ds. So
wow.
There's one for the tipsters if you're looking at the Sydney and Melbourne game on the weekend.
Well,
bit of an odd statistic, that one.
You couldn't pick Melbourne anyway at the moment, could you? They're bloody terrible.
God, no.
They were better when they were tanking.
At least they were predictable.
I think some of the midfielders are currently tanking. Just on some AFLW news, because there's the trade period, which is up and going at the moment. So we did have Chelsea Randall at the Club Champion Awards on Friday night actually announce that she's committed to the club for next season. So bye-bye West Coast, you can't have her. But it is only the 1-year deal. Katie Brennan, though, is the big news today because their captain of the Western Bulldogs has left to go to Richmond, who have given her a 2-year deal. So that's the new thing this year is they can now have 2-year deals. But interesting, Richmond have gone for a very tall, slowish. Well, Katie Brennan's not that slow. I actually do really like her as a player. But with Sabrina Frederick-Taub is also quite heavily rumoured to be announced to also be going to Richmond. So they're actually getting a lot taller forward line, which is complete contrast to the team that dominated this year and us, which didn't have those big tall forwards. There's been a few other little movements and stuff around, and apparently West Coast are working very hard to take at least all the 8 players they're allowed to from Fremantle. So and by the sounds of it, we're going to do quite well at keeping our squad together, and all the other teams are going to get weaker. I don't think it's going to be that good a look for the AFLW next year.
What for me that hasn't been paying much attention to this part of the AFLW, Nikki, who are the expansion teams next year?
So we've got 4. We've got Gold Coast, Richmond, St Kilda, and West Coast.
Yeah, interesting. Gold Coast is interesting.
I think this is a real danger season. The AFLW.
Queensland actually has a huge growth in participation, and their under 18 girls teams has actually been performing better than the Vic Country teams over the past 2 years. So they're actually very strong up there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I do think Brisbane actually, unfortunately, need to move on Starcevic because he's kind of stuck in the older game plan. West Coast have been working quite hard for a couple of years and developing players and actually keeping them out of Fremantle's team as well. I think that's kind of been the rumour that some girls have not nominated for the draft when they've kind of been eligible because they know they're going to get picked up there. But St Kilda, we haven't heard anything about any signings from them yet, but Richmond, they've got the nice big splashy news today.
Yep. All right, well, let's close up the news on that one. American Crow, welcome in the chat. There's no way in a pink fit I'm talking about the Cleveland Browns, thanks very much, or the Cleveland Cavaliers, or the Cleveland whoever the hell other team you've got there, some ice hockey team. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Come on down to Browntown, Fiend. Come on.
No. Let's get into some match talk, shall we? I have to do that really quick because YouTube got me in trouble again last week. Anyway, match talk. We suck. Discuss.
In both teams.
Yep.
And we suck in exactly the same ways.
Where's Pete gone?
Yeah, I'm here. I had a good look at the twos on Friday night. That was pretty bad. So there's not a lot of...
It was kind of okay for the first half. It wasn't too bad, but the second half and that last quarter was atrocious.
Yeah, there's not a lot of joy there. But no, look, I went to the game on Thursday night, and what was everyone's general thoughts?
Well, you go. We had a big say, so you and Donkey have a crack.
Well, I thought there was there was some reasonable. I thought there was some reasonable positives. I mean, there were some reasonable positives in terms of some of the ball movement was actually pretty good. I thought coming out of defence, it wasn't too bad. Not all night, but on occasion. But then they just hit a roadblock, didn't they? Around about the middle, there was just nothing at all. And the amount of times we saw the ball run out, reasonably well and reasonably fluently, and then it just stopped at around about the halfway point, and it was pretty horrific after that. Yeah, so the only thing that was really disappointing for me on the night was the fact that I was 2 points off the margin.
I was one.
The way I see it, Pete, is that I thought we moved the ball. Obviously, that we've got a very slow back line on our last line with the tools there, and our real weapons for attacking come from our half back line, which is Laird, who's getting very heavily tagged, Smith and Miller, and that's where any pace comes from. And what happened with the Geelong game is what happened in the Hawthorn game. Slow us down coming out of defence because our midfielders were going pretty well, but the way it was coming out of defence, there were occasions when we managed to get some speed coming and pace coming out of there, and when we could actually Geelong didn't get time to get into that roadblock position, which they do. But most of the time, we would get the ball, then we would look up, and our forwards weren't spreading, they weren't leading, and unfortunately, Taylor Walker, who didn't have a really great game, he led a lot of times and was ignored. We don't have players that can clunk a mark, and we kept bombing into the forward line, and Geelong just picked us off with ease because some of their players can actually take a mark and ours can't. Jenkins was back to being Jenkins of old. At the moment, I was so pissed off with Jenkins because you take, for example, that one on the half-forward flank where he got the ball. If he'd moved on quickly, he had two players free ahead of him. And for some reason, he balked, turned around, and then tried a look-away handball to the boundary line, totally missing the play. And our forwards, I don't believe, are in the right spot. They're not leading. They're not leading away from each other. They're leading towards each other. And if they do lead, or they're hanging behind, I don't know if disposal coming in there is not all that good. Having said everything I've just said, we still could have won the game with kick straight. So if we ever get our game plan incorrect, if we ever get some cohesion going, perhaps we might start winning a lot of games. But we are our own worst enemy at the moment.
I have to give some credit to Geelong in their midfield setup because they exploited Matt Crouch beautifully because we know he doesn't defensively run. And they made sure of who they could get on him, and then they could actually exploit it so that his player, whoever he was supposed to be minding, was the one who would then get off the chain. Brad was also a little bit slack at times in that respect, but Matt was completely useless as being able to do that two-way running. And that's unfortunately the one downside with Matt because he doesn't have the speed, but he's never really had that desire to do that defensive run, and he has to do it because they know about him now, and they exploited that brilliantly. The other thing is that where Geelong got those run-ons, it was the small forwards, and it was everybody else pointing fingers at everybody else that you need to man up on him. So as much as we love that run we can get from halfback, but Laird, who's being heavily tagged, and he's also playing shit, he's not defending well. When we know he can actually defend, but he's not even doing that. Like his confidence is shot because of that. Smithers can defend a bit, but he wasn't really doing anything at all in that game. He was kind of getting his run on, but he wasn't then running back once the ball got turned over, which, as you guys just pointed out, it did a lot. And Miller was kind of non-existent a little bit. although he wasn't too bad when he was manned up on Ablett. I thought that was actually a decent matchup because he has that speed to counter the wiliness of Ablett. But yeah, they weren't doing their natural switchovers that we've seen them do in the past, that they knew that whoever was in the position, they could take that forward coming through and they would do a decent job. But the one thing that really kind of got to me, and my dad pointed it out, was the way we bring the ball out of defence. It's exactly the same as how we bring it in the twos as we do it in the AFL side. And it is so freaking predictable, and it's why that ball keeps pinging back in, because we kick it out to the pocket and then we go straight up the fat side, up the wing, where there's a huge contest. We never, ever bring it into the centre.
Well, it didn't seem to matter for Geelong, Nikki.
Oh no, they could do it.
No. No, you obviously didn't watch the game because Geelong, I don't care, every kick out, Geelong went short to the pocket and down the fat side. They never, ever went through the corridor. In fact, their whole transition.
Hang on. Through the fat side.
Hang on.
They were isolating players.
Hang on.
Their whole transition was based around us guarding the corridor and them just going down the line. There was a key difference in the way that they would defend as we were coming out. When we were coming out of defence, we were coming out wide, as we always do, and they would station 3 players or 4 players in a row horizontally, so across the ground, about 20 to 25 metres in front of the kicker, right? And what that was doing was forcing us to either kick long and high or to try and switch slowly, and they would just shuffle across. When we were guarding them coming out of defence, what we were doing was blocking the corridor, which meant that they were actually able to get outnumbered situations down the line because we actually had too many players in the corridor half the time out of position and not even in the play, 100 metres away from the ball. And there were so many times where they could just kick it down the line to a contest knowing that they had 1 or 2 outnumbers because we were sitting there waiting for them to try and cut into the middle, and they refused to do it all night, Nikki.
Yeah, but that's what I was actually, that's my point I made at the start, is that teams know how to counter it. Because we're doing that, they then can set up and cover it so that they can get that. And we're stupid enough. We're not smartly coached at the moment. So as much as Mattner's been great in the SANFL, he's not doing a good job with that backline in terms of or the team defense, whoever's in charge of that. You just make my point for me, Phoenix. There was
more than a few times where I saw the ball fluently run out of defence and up the centre corridor, and then what happened on a few occasions was because there was just nothing, literally nothing.
Yeah, because they're all too high up
to go to, that they ended up switching wide because the run through the corridor it just stops in its tracks.
Yeah, but they really springs one is Sloan in particular. He had got it right in the centre of the ground and then went out about a 60-degree angle out to the half-forward flank, which I think ended up going out of bounds. So your point's very well made, Pete.
When we broke out of... Sorry, go on, Pete.
Sorry, go on.
No, go on, mate.
I was just going to quickly say, just the amount of times I saw the ball, go into the into the hot zone just above the goal square, with Lockie Murphy just there by himself.
Well,
to contest. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
It was stupid.
Or their other ruckman.
Stupid, or even Menegola was dropping back as well. What was happening on our transition, Pete, you're right, we would start down the corridor and then we'd flick it out wide, and then we'd end up entering the forward 50, either having to kick deep or kicking to a lead that was easily covered by Geelong, and often it was a 2-on-1 situation, either Tex or whoever, right out on the boundary at the 50. And to me, a lot of that comes down to one bloke, and that's Josh Jenkins, because whenever he was played up high, unlike the Josh of old, who would get on his bike and run back in to cover that space on transition, he was nowhere.
Mm.
We were playing Tex high and JJ deep, and every time we played Tex High and JJ and Tex Deep and JJ High, he was nowhere to be seen.
I was very annoyed with his game. I just thought he fell back into his old habits. Last year he was one of our better players, but this year, on what he's shown so far this year, as I said, I'd trade him at the end of the year.
Donkey?
There's another thing that I've watched, and admittedly I've been watching on dodgy Wi-Fi or on iPhones while on tubes, so it hasn't been always the best viewing. But the thing that's really stuck out to me is I really feel that our skills are quite down whenever I've noticed this play, and it's really hard to extrapolate the structure and how well we're executing it if we're not actually hitting our targets with our kicks. The amount of times we put the ball 2 meters over Tex's head or 2 meters in front of him, and he's getting it on the bounce, and all those execution delivery things, I think are probably causing us a few more problems than we're attributing to structure when it's actually just our execution delivery. And I think until we clean that up, we're not going to be moving anywhere. We'll crunch out some wins and grind out some wins, but if our skills stay at this level, we're going to be in a world of pain.
Well, Donk, you're right. And what is one of the big factors in terms of impacting skills and causing skill errors? What would you say one of the big factors is?
Too much fun at training.
No, seriously.
Opposition pressure.
Well, that's one.
Oh, no.
But what's another?
No concentration, no focus.
No, it's fatigue. Players get
No,
tired.
I'm talking start of the match. They're doing it, mate.
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is that it's not just game day fatigue. One thing that I noticed when I was running through the video for Sunday night is we look very, very heavy in the legs. Very slow, very one pace. There's not a lot of acceleration from any of our players. And it makes me wonder whether they've been smashed at training early on and they're just needing a bit of a taper, because at the moment it seems to me they're getting tired and they're not running and their skills are breaking down under pressure and in those fatigue situations.
Well, I agree with you. As a group, we look slower than our opposition does. But is that because we are slow, though?
Oh, maybe.
Because you have a look, if you go through our players and name the ones that have got speed above the average, I don't think you wouldn't get a handful.
I don't know. You would, but they're not being played in positions that are going to hurt the opposition. Miller and Smithers off halfback, they could probably hurt, but you got Chase Jones who's being played as a defensive forward. You got Rory Atkins who's fast enough, but that doesn't get near it, so it doesn't matter. Yep, you've got Seedsman has a reasonable amount of pace.
But not there.
Who else have we got? Well, obviously.
But I think we're just about out of them already.
Well, yeah, you're definitely right. You're definitely right. Our midfield, our main rotation is Matt Crouch, Brad Crouch, and Rory Sloane, and Bryce Gibbs.
Not quick.
Who's gonna break? And to add to your point, Pete, and I don't know whether you saw the Sunday night cast, but Brad Crouch at the moment. Oh, Nicky, it was you that was making the point about the midfield. He's not a midfield's arsehole at the moment, and I don't care whether he got 29 touches or whatever. His first quarter was atrocious.
Yeah, he's not making good decisions in who he's giving it to.
He's not even making decisions.
Hori's made a very interesting point, because in the chat we've actually been discussing about the fun, etc., that we saw that same kind of...
The men could be assessed. I mean, I don't think there's anything in that. I think he was just commenting on the women more than commenting on the men.
I don't disagree with the Brad Crouch comment, Fane. I've thought for a long time that his reputation sort of far exceeds a lot of the time, what we actually see from Brad when we actually see anything at all, if he's actually out there.
Well, there was one key one that we highlighted on Sunday night, Pete, where Sloaney started on Danger. So if you can picture it, Sloaney's starting on the defensive side for them. On the attacking side for us. On Danger, who's on the defensive side for them. Brad Crouch is on the defensive side for us. And then you've got Matt Crouch in there as well. So Sloane and Danger run under the contest. They get the knock, but Sloane manages to get Danger under the contest. So Sloane then turns around to chase the ball. In the meantime, I forget the guy's name. Matt Crouch's opponent runs through and gets the ball. But the critical thing was that Danger, having been pushed under the ball, he ran forward. Now, the bloke that was covering that movement was Brad Crouch. He was by himself on the defensive side of that contest. So Dangerfield had to basically run past Brad Crouch in order to make position on the half-forward flank to get the eventual pass from Ablett, right? Now, Brad Crouch was nowhere near Dangerfield. In fact, Rory Sloane, who had to turn around and chase him, got closer to Dangerfield than Crouch did. Crouch should have blocked Dangerfield on the way through. Brad didn't even have a player on him because they had one loose on, and we had one loose on either side of the contest. Brad being on the defensive side, as soon as Danger started running forward, having been pushed under the ruck contest, Brad should have at the very least picked him up and at the most put a block on him. And Dangerfield ended up 20 metres clear. 20 metres clear. And then the other one that we highlighted, Brad Crouch actually started on Dangerfield at the bounce. Dangerfield was behind Crouchy. Crouchy had body on him. The ball goes up, the ball gets tapped down. Crouch basically stands and watches while Dangerfield goes and gets the ball. He doesn't move, actually doesn't move.
Was that the one where Rob ended up chasing him?
No, it's the one where Danger got the spill out of the congestion and then handballed it over to their number 11 who ran through. But the funny thing was that Brad stayed stock still and ended up being not even if we'd have got the ball out of that spillage, Brad wasn't in a position to get it. So he just basically stood there and ball watched after having body on Dangerfield up until the moment that the ruckman tapped the ball. It was unbelievable. If anyone hasn't watched it yet, go back and watch about 25 minutes in on the video that we showed on Sunday night and watch those two Brad Crouch midfield performances, and you'll be shocked that an elite AFL midfielder can make two fundamental errors against one of the game's elite midfielders. And that's indicative of how we're playing at the moment.
And it just goes a little bit deeper than just that. When Kelly was in the middle, Kelly was playing as the outside mid, and every time the ball got tapped down, all our people would dive in for the ball.
Yeah, and he'd just run forward.
There's Kelly sitting on there waiting for the ball to come out, and off he'd go.
Yep.
And really, our structure at the midfield really needs. So actually, we at the moment we've criticised our forward coach, our defensive coach, and the midfield coach.
Well, I think the defensive coach is all right. I think it's actually the bloody selection down back that got us, because as Cam and I were talking about on the rev up on Thursday before the game, they had four smalls, and we didn't. Who was our smallest player? We had Miller there, but we had Jake Kelly playing in Luke Brown's spot. We had Keith, Hardigan, and Talia as the three tools, and then Smith and Miller. It was a complete stuff-up by the selection panel in terms of getting those matchups right.
Yeah, look, I thought Kelly was really showing up on the weekend. They did play smalls up there, and Kelly had real trouble keeping up. I thought he didn't look like an AFL player when he's standing on players that are quick and small.
Well, probably a good time to just raise a point that it dovetails into this issue that we're just so wedded to continuity as a philosophy that we do not have any kind of flexibility or any kind of creativity in terms of matchups, so that we're just 110% wedded to continuity as being the panacea to everything. Well, it's just it's just mind-boggling.
Have a look at who'd be sitting down at selection on a Thursday night, Pete, because whoever's done it has manufactured it really well. You've got Don Pike, you've got Scott Campriali, who we know is one of the main wedded to continuity guys. You got Matty Clark, who's also a rusted-on assistant. And then our midfield coach is Godden, and our defensive coach is Matner, and our forward coach is Ben Hart. 3 guys who aren't going to say a freaking word. 2 of them are rookie coaches, straight from the SANFL. What other club in the AFL has got 2 rookie assistant coaches from a lower league? And then we've got Ben Hart, who no one's really paying any attention to anyway, because no one wanted him on the coaching panel in the first place. No, but it's true, Macca. So when you actually think about what the dynamic would be like at selection, it would be a discussion between Don Pike, Scott Campriale, and probably a bit of Matt Clark. The other 3 wouldn't have a bit to say. So what are you going to get out of that? You're going to get the same old shit every time because there's no tension at selection. There's no challenging. There's no ideas. I'm not putting Marty Matner or Mick Godden down, but they're 3 games into their first year of an AFL coaching career. They're not going to sit down and stand up to Scott Campriale, who's the senior assistant.
No.
Yeah, that's light years away from when we had Teagan Podgiardley as our assistant coach.
Definitely.
And unfortunately, that's showing on the field in selection. It's showing in the way they play. You're quite right. Some players are just rusted on into that team as.
Well, that was Macca gone. Thanks, Macca.
I mean, putting all that aside and just giving some kind of positivity to it. At the end of the day, with all of the, with how bad we were on Thursday night, early in the last quarter, we've got a kick to tie the scores.
Yeah.
And so there was, as I said at the very, very start, I thought that there were some good signs I actually thought there was some good signs with our run out of defence.
Agree.
And there was certainly, sorry?
I agree.
And there was some, and the third quarter was excellent. And, interestingly enough, with the third quarter, is that it gets, when his form is as bad as what it is at the moment, it's very, very easy to lose sight of the fact of just how important Tex is to our side. Now, he came, a little bit to life in the third quarter, did a couple of things. He got his hand on the ball a bit. He kicked a goal. When Walker is able to inject himself into the game, it just lifts the whole side. I mean, you cannot downplay how important that man is, and it's a bit of a tragedy for the side at the moment that that he's playing like he is. But you can't deny how important he is. You can't deny what he does to the side. And in that third quarter, Tex is up and about, and he's doing a few things, and all of a sudden, we're a different side. We're every chance.
I disagree. I disagree, Pete, so much. I disagree because there was one key thing. There was one key thing that changed in the third quarter that made us get back into the game, and that was that we stopped kicking it to 30 metres out and we started spotting up at 45. That was the key difference. I wouldn't
disagree with that. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. And I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm certainly not saying that Tex was, the be all and end all. And I'm sure that there were things that we changed, and I absolutely wouldn't disagree with that, mate. Not at all. I was just sort of saying that when and he wasn't even in the third quarter, he wasn't at his best at all. But just when he.
Oh, now Pete's gone.
Oh, we've lost Pete. So it's just you, me, and Donkey? Uh-oh.
No, well, I'm here, I think.
Macca's back.
Yeah, oh God.
Pete, you back?
Yeah, he's still there, Macca.
I don't know what's happened to Pete.
Injects himself into the game. It does feel that, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Yeah. So, sorry. So I don't doubt there's a whole lot of stuff that impact upon that third quarter. But yeah, Tex is just, when he does get his hands on the ball, it does, it lifts the crowd, it lifts the team. And, anyway, we're a kick away from tying the game up, and then of course Gary Ablett puts in 10 minutes of Gary Ablett, and where do we end up from there? We'll look at you'd look at the fixture and think there's no reason if we can't get a bit of form, we could run ourselves a bit better. maybe
Peter,
and save the season. But that's
Peter,
looking at it, that's giving positive view.
Peter, you're starting to break up now. Donk?
As Pete will swing up to the positivity, I'll take over the mantle and run it hard in that direction. 3 games in, I don't think we need to throw all the babies out with all the bathwater. I think there's been enough good play and enough few things about what we've done in the first 3 rounds to just see the glimmers of things that could be if we can get things right. I do think that the skills problem that we had is a huge thing going forward, and I think that Fiend might be on the money here with some bit of overtraining, because we've heard all about how they were running very hard and heavy all pre-season. So if they've overtrained a bit and they're a bit heavy in the legs, and then it means it's impacted our skills, then I think that's not a bad thing. The other thing is we've probably had 3 of the toughest games of our fixture in the first 3 rounds of this year. We haven't probably done what we needed to do, but after those first 3 rounds, our fixture does lighten up a fair way. So look, if we can run out a bit of form against North Melbourne, not that that's been easy over the last few years, but we can run out some form against North Melbourne, then and get some continuity into the guys and get some good play, then I don't think it all is lost. I just think we're having a bit of a wobble at the start, and to repurpose an old Keating phrase now we're in election season. These were the losses we had to have. So I think it's good timing.
Extremely disappointed in both of you. Go on,
I'm with you. I'm with you, Pete. I'm disappointed because I was going to say Donkey made some very good points there, but it still doesn't alter the fact that the 2 teams that beat us, and they are very good teams, we're not arguing about that, they did it in a certain manner, and it is a formula that's going to beat us every time unless we play a little bit differently. And I've seen written in many, many times in many places this week that both Hawthorn and Geelong have shown the formula how to beat the Crows, and I think that's true. Some teams won't be able to do that because they won't have the quality of players to be able to do it. But for teams that perhaps we should beat in marginal games, there could be the difference between winning and losing. And so I think, yes, we can win them. We can win the next 4 games, but we also need to have a better structure. We need to have a better formula up forward, and I think our coaches have to perhaps make a few changes that they don't want to make because they seem reluctant to make the changes, and introduce at least a couple of young bloods in there with it. Like young Scholl in the back lines could easily be introduced instead of Kelly. His form has been excellent, and he looks like a real player of the future, I think. So I think, bringing in a couple of young boys and play and just correct the problems that we've got that if people like us can see it, well, surely they must be aware of it. You'd hope they would be aware of them anyhow. So,
what do you think, Nikki?
Yes, we can improve.
I think after watching the game on Friday night, the SANFL, I think Scholl is very close, should be very close to getting a call up. The only problem is we love those 3 players across the half back line.
Miller should probably go into the middle.
Yeah, and that's what I think you can do with him. I know that Vardy Magic actually asked me a question on Twitter about, is he actually quick? Because that wasn't something we'd seen with him. And the observation I have is he's quick, but he's not like super speedy. But what he can do is he can maintain that speed so he gets the break on the opponent, and then he can maintain that break. He times his runs beautifully. He's got such a really good kick. The only downside was, I said it in the chat, that Himmelberg couldn't catch a beach ball on Friday night. But there was also a bit of problems with some of the delivery to him was like the delivery that we've been doing to the AFL team. Shit. Gooch got into it a little bit, so it was nice to I think he's one we will see back in the team soon, and he will inject that midfield pace because what I've heard is
got to put him back in.
Pike's been very, very keen to get him into the midfield. But the player who I was most impressed with was actually Paholke. He's taken a really nice step forward. And whilst, unfortunately, he's not that quick player, he can actually take a contested mark.
Where do you play him? Where do you play him, Nick?
He's a midfielder. And we're not going to take out those players, the Crouchers or Sloan or Gibbs, and that's the problem.
Mm.
Yeah.
Galucci's the man.
Yeah,
he has to come in.
I agree. He has to come in, and he has to be played in the midfield rotation, not as a half forward.
I think he will come in the midfield. Fingers crossed if they do it properly.
I saw some good signs from Galucci, and Nick, you would have seen his dash down the wing, and he's hit Himmelberg on the chest with an absolute bullet, and then followed up, and Himmelberg's given the dish, and Galucci's kept going. It was classic Jordan Galucci,
and it was a bullet pass,
wasn't it? It was magnificent. Now
it was like, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be able to run at the speed of the ball.
It almost should have actually put a hole. It should have put a hole in Elliot Himmelberg. It should have gone straight through him. But I'll say this, and Nick, you know this. Galucci's never ever been a big performer in the Sandful, and I don't know why that is. He's never ever, but he just does things. You think, yep, that belongs at a higher level.
Yeah,
and we've lost Pete again.
I reckon
He makes a trade. I'd say it's probably my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
No,
sorry, Pete. You're gone.
I'll stop.
Look, I agree with Gooch.
Pete's other favourite in Ben Davis. It's been really nice to see his development that he's been doing, and I know you've been quite hard on Lynch, Fiend. I did like the start of the game because it looked like he'd had some angry pills and he was working really hard to get into the game, Lynch that is, but then he faded. But Davis was doing some very nice things in the SANFL. But, yeah, we just absolutely got poleaxed in the last quarter. It was almost a mirror image of the AFL game.
Yeah. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, mate. That was my Wi-Fi that's a bit dodgy, so I've just switched over. So, look, I was just going to quickly say that I put on social media today. I just cannot understand, we're 2 years into Jordan Galucci's career and he's got 17 games up. If you look at guys that were drafted, after him, Powell Pepper, Berry, Witherden, Hayward, all these guys have got, 35, 40 games up. Mm-hmm. And, he's a pick 15 midfielder and there's just no reason at all that he shouldn't be in our side and playing more games because he's shown plenty when he's got in. So, when you think that we can get our, old mate can get in and play round one off the back of no pre-season, half a trial game, if old mate can do that, then, why the hell are we, worrying about pumping however many games into Galucci? Just get him in the side, get his pace in, get his creativity in.
I think that's the key, Pete. There are players that we just have to get into the side, and not that you ignore form, but I think you have to look at the dynamic of the team and probably set sail with a group for the next half a dozen weeks until the bye, and just see what that group can deliver. And we're too predictable, in my opinion. We're too easy to play against at the moment, and there's probably, all those changes, all those guys that you mentioned. I think Tyson Stengel is very stiff not to be in the ones at the moment. I think Ned McHenry would have been the obvious replacement for Lukey Brown down back. I agree with you on Fogarty. I agree with you on Davis. I agree with you on Galucci. Not sure about Greenwood because I just don't know where he fits at the moment. But we could easily rejig our forward line to have Tex playing higher where he's looked half decent, and have Fogg playing deeper with Lynch out and Davis running around creating a bit of havoc up forward and just losing that sameness that we have up forward at the moment. Just injecting a little bit of unpredictability and, having a marking forward, Pete, it just makes that opposition player more accountable. And at the moment, they can sag off so easily because they know they've got two blokes to cover who can't really mark anyway. And if you watch Tex, every time the ball got kicked to him, he was 2-on-1. So, but I am disappointed that you blokes are all so optimistic because history will show you that we will smash this season out with the same game plan and the same working harder and smarter and getting better at the game plan. And we'll win our fair share because we've got a talented team. We're not a bad list, but we will get to finals in, between 5 and 8, and we'll get found out by the same teams that have worked out our game plan and have done so consistently over the last couple of years. Richmond, Geelong, Hawthorn. And so it's a pointless fucking exercise.
I've tried to look. I was really, really grumpy tonight, and if you've seen me on social media, I've been really, really grumpy in what I've posted. And I'm trying to be a bit positive because I think that people probably don't want to, get down too much. But honestly, if we're speaking the truth, I'm done with this playing group, and I think, Fian, that I've been done with this playing group for probably quite a while because I've seen it happen too often. I've seen the same stuff. I've seen the same stuff in important games, and I just do not believe that this playing group has got any more left in it.
Well, I think that's the general... I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the rest of you, but I think that's been the general feeling of this podcast for a good 12 months. Would that be a fair call?
Yeah. Well, I would say if you look at the last 20 years since we last won a flag, we, as a club, have had probably 5 opportunities in that time to win a flag, and we've managed to, by a combination of coaching, game plan and selection, managed to blow every one of them. And it does, you eventually do get a gutful of it. And I, at the moment, have no hope. I had hope at the beginning of this season. When I saw we were just rolling out the same old stuff again, I thought to myself, well, you're right. You're right, Fian. We'll just blow another season. We'll win a reasonable amount of games, but we won't win a flag.
I don't think so.
And as I said a couple of weeks ago, the 2015 semi-final side, 15 players.
Yeah,
15. And do you know how many? Just quickly. Do you know how many players in that Geelong side on Thursday night were playing in round 23, 2015? 5.
Yeah. And that's the difference. And I was just about to say, Pete, and it follows on from your point perfectly, we could win a flag this year because we do have enough talent in our squad. But we've got to fucking play them, which means we've got to actually make some hard calls on some blokes. If we inject some youth and inject some enthusiasm and some new, fresh faces and get this game plan sorted out and actually make ourselves a little bit unpredictable and a little bit harder to play against, we've got enough talent on our list to be able to challenge any team in the competition. But if the club keeps putting on the park the same players that we've been putting on the park, like you rightly point out, Pete, since 2015, with the same game plan that's been worked out by all the power clubs going around, then we don't have a chance of winning a flag. So my hope is that the Crows actually draw a line in the sand and start picking some blokes on form and picking a team that is more dynamic, has more variety, and can actually shake things up a bit.
Agree.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Anyway, fuck this. Let's do bloody competitions.
Yes, I want to do the tipping.
Donkey, you prepared?
I am prepared and ready to go. Welcome to the CrowCast Dream Team 2019 Round 1 results. I know this is what everyone's been waiting for. I've been getting private messages going off the chain, just people wanting to know what has been happening in Round 1 of the competitions. And people want to know, has Phoenix finally got it together? Has he finally been able to assemble a list that's going to sail him up to the top of the ladder? And we have our answer, ladies and gentlemen. No. Is that answer. But he isn't bottom of the ladder, which is a good thing for him. So if we
I didn't change my bloody team for the first 3 weeks because I forgot all about the fact that even though we couldn't see the scores, it was actually going.
It's well, you've only been playing 2 years, so I know these are things.
Yeah, I know.
This is
so at least I improved to like 1900 or 1890 or something.
1820. Let's
shut up. Move on.
Let's just stick with reality here, Don. Look, the usual players are kicking off very well. So we've got Peanut in the Winter March kicking off with 2200, knocking off TGFC, who line up against the Magoos next week. We've got the Magoos just got the chocolates over Sanders, and looking a bit dicey there with Fife going down. The Donkey wasn't sure he was going to get over the line, but we got there in the end, so very happy. Phoenix only lost his first game by 300 points, so well done, Phoenix. You've pulled up your stuff there. You're the Carlton of our league.
Thanks, mate.
The bad men getting up over Sam Crow. We got Fabs 33 with a decent effort out against High Country Crows. We've got the Bucketeers, who went down to footy and facial hair. We've got Azza, who's just absolutely destroyed Denis by about 600 points. So he's your saving grace, is the fact that Denis is in the competition. Fiends.
He's a plant.
Game of...
I actually put him in under my name, it's my second team, and I'm not gonna pick anyone.
That's actually the team you're trying in, isn't it? We've got Game
Sorry,
of
you're breaking
Sloans,
up.
Yeah, sure. Really? Game of Sloans coming in over, it was only 19, and Mixed Spuds going down to Dillon FCC. So the big players from last season all are going strong. Donkeys have managed to get a win, but still not be in the 8. So that's a little bit sad. Next week we got some pretty decent matchups, I think, ahead of us, but I can't remember how to flick to that quickly, so we might just leave it. And then if you have a look at tipping, unfortunately I can't read who's at the top of the ladder, so that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
Bit blurry.
No, it's just really blurry. So Mixed Spuds comes at number 2. We got Paul C at 3. Matt's in 4th on 16. And Phoenix is coming in at the top of the CrowCast tippers that I can see, except for maybe because I can't see the top of the ladder. But anyway, Phoenix has come in with 16. Phoenix only got 4 last week. I forgot to put my tips in and got 5. So I think you've done that around the wrong way.
It deserves being right, because he slagged me off for being 5th last week, and the
real drama of the tipping competition is that we've got Moyley coming in here at 14 and J-Mac all the way down in 12th on 13 and 15. Yeah. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know whether they've got a bit of rust in the start of the season. They've been calling up Burton and Don Pike for their tipping ideas. And
I think they're just tipping the Crows.
Here's the thing.
Maybe they're tipping the...
Here's the thing. J-Mac got 6 last week, and he's still down on 13. So what the hell was he doing for the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, J-Mac, you've got some questions about it. Just remember, you don't get any extra points next season for tanking. So look, you've got to run it out really hard. But all jokes aside, congratulations to Nicky on top of the ladder.
Macca nowhere to be seen.
No Macca. And no Pete. There's Pete if you don't join this one.
No, Pete didn't join either. Anyway, thanks. Thanks, Donkey. That was wonderful.
Oh, yes, I was a grumpy old man. That's what I am. And I really don't care who knows it.
Come on, Macca.
Yeah, well, I've certainly got a few. For the sweets, I want to thank and consider sweet to thank Kilda, the Gold Coast, Freo and the Bulldogs for getting a 2-game break above the rivals for the bottom spot in Carlton. And if we go to get our act together and these other teams can just keep Carlton where they belong, then we could have a very good result at the end of the year. But it started off very nicely in that respect. That's the only sweet I've got. I've got plenty of smacks, and we've discussed quite a few of them. The first one is our coaching panel, and for very obvious reasons, so I won't go through it all. But Jesus, we've got problems there. The second one goes to Andrew Fagan, a great big smack for breaking your promise. You told us you were going to get the best people of every position within the club. Well, in 2018, you proved that with Birdman that you didn't. And before that with Reed, who was Sauce's bitch, he first go wearing an L plate, trying to do trade. And then we've got Hart in our forward line. So a great big smack to you for lying, Andrew Fagan. You just lied.
Oh,
The third one goes to Brian Taylor.
big call.
He was talking about a player with a...
Do you want to
great
just
big
chuck
knocker.
an allegedly in that, Macca?
Well,
Andrew
everything's
Fagan.
Everything's allegedly.
The views of Macca do not necessarily reflect those of the remainder of the podcast crew and or CrowCast.
He did make that statement.
But
Allegedly.
it's subjective to
Brian-
say that it's subject. No, go on.
It's my opinion. I'm allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah, I know, but
Anyhow, Brian Taylor-
saying he lied is a strong statement.
He
You
mi-
could probably
I believe he mi-
you could probably
let's
say
change
he
that
is.
to, I believe he misled us.
No, you could
I
probably
believe-
say that he's failed so far.
Well, I'll go
He
with that.
hasn't delivered.
Hasn't delivered. Thank you. I withdraw the line and replace it with you haven't delivered. You haven't, folks. Brian Taylor, talking about a player who had a big teased up mop of hair, and Brian, trying to be an intellectual, was trying to say the word bouffant, but he ended up saying he had a boffin-style haircut. Well, there was only one boffin, Brian, and that was you. What else we have on the list? We've got the AFL for the Melbourne tanking episode, and that's been discussed in plenty of detail. And lastly, the diving at the players diving for the ball and players going over the top. I don't think there's anything wrong with the particular rule. It's the umpire's interpretation of the rule, in the sense that if the player is already there and got the ball, he has not dived on the ball. So umpires, you'll get a smack for your ridiculous interpretation of allowing players to run in and then they roll over gently over the top of the player who's got the ball and get a free kick. It looks stupid and it's a joke, and you guys do a great big slap.
Macca, it is actually the rule. The way they've written the rule, it's not the interpretation. It is the rule in that any contact below the knee is a free kick.
I thought it had about after sliding in.
Nah.
No, it got changed. We talked about that earlier.
Got changed.
Well, then I'll smack them all.
Anyway, thanks for that.
It is bloody ridiculous.
Thanks for that, Macca. That was inspiring and somewhat disconcerting. And I'm just getting on the phone to our lawyers now just to see where we stand. Look,
American Crow's in the chat.
Is it? Yeah. I don't know whether he can operate in this jurisdiction. Does anyone think we're going to lose against North Melbourne this weekend?
Yep.
No.
I've got no idea. I really haven't.
I'll put it this way: on paper, there's no way we should lose to North Melbourne. What Pete's really saying is, I think you're saying the same, Pete, but you fear that they still could have managed to do it.
I think I'd actually tip us this week.
Well, there's one thing that North. Sorry, go Don. Go.
I was going to say, if we don't win this week, I don't think we can win the flag this year.
Oh, that's a big turnaround. You've gone from up and about to just doom and gloom. The one thing that North have got in their favour is that the coach has got a brother who's worked us out a long time ago. So if they happen to get together for a coffee on Thursday before selection, then that might do us in a little bit. Look, I think we'll beat North. They've got a couple of key outs. I think Mason Wood out hurts them. And apparently he had a setback in the twos last week, so he may not be back.
He got injured.
It's going to be a struggle. Anyway, selection on Thursday will be interesting, and Cam and I will be putting together our Rev Up show, which will go live about halfway through. When are we playing? Saturday or Sunday? Saturday.
Saturday night.
Saturday night. So it'll go.
And SNFL Eagles on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, so the Rev Up show will be online. Look out for that around lunchtime on Saturday. Give you something to look at and listen to before you get ready for the Crows. And, of course, we'll be back on Sunday night for the Wrap show with Macca and Nikki, hopefully with some good news to talk about. In the meantime, I have to say thank you to all our patrons, and particularly I need to say a big thank you to Tim, a.k.a. Scorpus, who made a very generous donation to CrowCast during the week. Scorpus runs a YouTube channel called Hardware Unboxed, and it's very successful and it's very informative. If you ever need to have a look at a review for a piece of technology, then Hardware Unboxed on Facebook or Hardware Unboxed on YouTube. It's an excellent show, and thank you very much to Scorpus and everyone who's donated to the CrowCast and who supports CrowCast through Patreon. If you want to support us, just head to patreon.com/AFL CrowCast or click the Patreon button on our website at aflcrowcast.com. That's all for me for tonight. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Pete, Mac and Nikki, and
Thanks,
Donkey.
Mate.
Go Crows.
later.
We'll see you Thursday night. Goodbye.
Yeah, good night all.
Not all.